so we can tweet it out. Let's see. Here we go. Get shareable link.
I tried to put the fake mustache on tonight, but it wouldn't stick to me, so.
Okay. All right. So I've sent it out on Twitter now. You'll be able to see it.
All right. Am I tagged in it, or is it? I have to go to you?
Yeah, you are.
Oh, there it
At
is.
TopRoller.
There it is. There it is. I tweeted it.
Cool. All right, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Toxic Happy Hour with TopRoller and your host Danish Hodl. Welcome to the show, TopRoller. What's going on?
Thank you for having me. It's exciting to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you. So before we went live, we were talking a little bit about government and hyper Bitcoinization. First off, I'm curious to hear what you think about the world going to a Bitcoin standard and Bitcoin becoming money of the world. Is that something you're seeing as likely? And if yes, what do you think is a realistic timeline for that?
So I think that Bitcoin will eventually replace the place in the world that gold had before Bretton Woods. I just think it's going to take a little while, and I don't think we're going to end up with an anarchist government. What I think we'll end up with is like the return of the republic, a fair, actual governing system that's limited. The fiaters will still try to fiat, but they will dilute themselves as they try to spend, and the poor countries with the socialist leaders will be even worse than we've ever seen. But the countries that have more strict fiat standards will be extremely wealthy. But Bitcoin will take over the spot that gold had before Bretton Woods.
Right. So you think that some countries will try and back their fiat by Bitcoin, or you think that the fiat will just be like as it is today, based on nothing really, or how do you see that?
I think it's going to be based on nothing except for an exchange rate between the currencies in Bitcoin.
Right.
And it's going to and because none of these countries, they all, I mean, there might be a few out there that may just say for small countries, I'm trying to think of some names right now, but it's just not coming off the top of my head. I think there's like one really small country in Europe that would probably be a good candidate if the country lasts long enough to see a Bitcoin standard. Right. I'm forgetting the name of that country. If anyone knows it, just blurt it out in the chat or something. I think it begins with a B or something like that.
Good question, which one that is. But now you mentioned that, so one of the thoughts I have is that it'll, for good reasons, it'll probably, I think, be some of the poor countries or countries that are under sanctions that will be the first to adapt Bitcoin, simply for a point of need, that they need a money that cannot be controlled by one superpower and sanctioned by one superpower, but for them to do what they want to do and trade with who they want to trade with. And also, I think many times it's in the same countries that you have a fast diluting fiat currency, and the population will want to have a money that is not being diluted all the time, but a money that increases in value.
Yeah, I mean, it should be the goal of the country, but as we see, how many countries out there, except for maybe like 3 countries, try to keep their inflation slow? Everyone else just dumps on their people, and it's up to the people themselves to acquire something outside of that currency. The people that do, they're gonna live normal lives. The people that believe what they're told by their governments are going to be poor always.
Right.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah, I agree. So what do you see as the role of government? We were talking a little bit about that also before going live, in terms of Um, like in this new world, let's say 10 years from now, whatever, what do you think will happen to level of government?
I think, and a lot of people are really going to be like, no, TopRoller, you are seriously wrong about this point. But I think the lack or the when these governments figure out that the wealth is going to be harder to get their hands on, I think it's going to start more. I think it's going to start more small skirmish level wars over borders and things. And 30 years from now, especially if you're like a small country that doesn't have like F-15s and aircraft carriers and stuff to defend, to defend your borders and waterways. I think if you're a small country, it's just not going to be a good idea to let any mining facilities be within 50 miles of any of your borders. Have them as far to the interior as possible, because if any of that stuff is easily reachable by other countries, it would be easy to seize that. I mean, if I personally, I mean, I was in the military for 8 years. I actually worked for military intelligence. I was a 35 Mike, which is I was an interrogator.
Right. Oh wow.
Didn't really do that much interrogating. Just did a lot of investigative style stuff, which is
right.
Not really what I was supposed to be doing. But
right.
But
that sounds interesting, TopRoller.
I did learn a lot about the military, and well, I mean, I was in the military, so I mean, I learned a lot about how these people think, and how the leaders think. Because especially when you're talking to like a Chief Warrant Officer 5 or someone that's like higher than a level major, and meanwhile like you're only like a sergeant or something like that, but because you're in intelligence, these people are requesting to speak to you.
Right.
You learn a lot about the you don't get to hear directly the reasons that say a senator or the president or someone told them to do what they're telling you to do, but after you've heard it enough times, you're like, oh, okay, this is all about just straight up defense. It has nothing to do with the political stuff that you're seeing on TV. All that stuff is just a distraction to me, so that people think that they're supporting something. I mean, I don't think they even know what they're supporting, especially when it comes to the mainstream media. But you really, like in the future, I don't think it's going to be a good idea to have a mining facility near your country's border with another country if your country isn't strong enough to get enough military power out there fast enough to stop someone else from stealing it, just like people do with oil today.
Right. Yeah. So and when you talk about mining facility, you talk about Bitcoin mining, right?
Yeah. Like, could you imagine if there was a river that crossed between two small countries, and country A just puts football field size warehouses next to this river, leaving it completely wide open to being taken by the other country?
Right.
It'd be a disaster for the country that loses it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are you saying, that this type of thinking is what you learn from being in the military, that when you're talking to people higher up, it's really about maybe not necessarily a defense of freedom, but it's like a business decision of acquiring resources, or like we know with oil, or
no, the people in the military straight up just say our job is to just maintain trade routes. We know it.
Right. All right. Interesting. So what else is happening in the land of Bitcoin? What do you find interesting in Bitcoin these days?
It's kind of funny because I just made a tweet today that I literally can't even name a top 20 altcoin anymore. I haven't even been on a market cap website in, I don't know, a year or two. I completely lost so much interest in those altcoins. I even got wrapped up into an altcoin once and thought it was awesome. And that was like when like 4 years ago when I first got into Bitcoin. Now it's like, you ask me what's going on in the space, and I don't know anything but Bitcoin.
Right.
And I don't really, and everyone else, like all the tech people, so far ahead of what a layman like me can follow. Like, yeah, I know the Lightning thing is kind of working its way up. I know the is it called rootstock, where they're going to try to extend the block size even more, so it's still that 1 meg, but they put even more memory on the back end. Is that what that called? I don't really remember.
I'm not sure what rootstock is. I'm not strong on the technical side. I'm more coming at it from a uh, societal, economic angle. That's like my background. That's how I, you know, uh, yeah, that's my take on Bitcoin. That's where I easiest understand, what money is, and therefore also why Bitcoin is money, and also why it is the best money the world has ever seen. And therefore, I'm probably more bullish than you. Then I know you're bullish, but when it comes to money, I don't think people will be accepting fiat currency. I think it will take over. The only reason we had silver back when we had gold was because for smaller amounts, you couldn't, gold dust was just impractical. It was so small pieces of gold that you couldn't have like a piece of gold. It had to be dust. And we just don't have that problem with Bitcoin because we have, we have 100 million Satoshis on one Bitcoin. And then further, once a Satoshi is valuable enough, as I understand, it can be soft forked to even, more digits. So we have something smaller than a Satoshi. So I think, I mean, personally, I wouldn't, if I have let's say two job offers, one is paying Bitcoin, the other one is paying fiat currency. I would definitely be leaning towards, just looking for something that can give me Bitcoin as an income, because it's better money. It'll retain its value better than fiat. And also, I don't see fiat being able to have a like slow fading out, losing value, but still playing a role. I just think that, it will go like so many times before when, they find printing more money is the only option of trying to stay alive. And that in itself really is killing the currency and bringing about a currency collapse. But I mean, we'll see. It's interesting times, very much. Yeah, that's my take on it.
It's a lot to think about, because right now is when hard men are being created. I mean, we literally have the Western system, well, not the world system, the Western system of government trying to lock its people down. And the United States is really in the way of that right now. And I'm just saying this to everyone who's not a United States citizen who lives in the Western world. You better hope the heck that Donald Trump gets reelected right now. I know a lot of Bitcoiners like, oh, how dare you say that, blah, 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 blah. But would you rather Donald Trump be reelected and keep the wheels on the, quote unquote, pretend republic rather than go straight into hardcore socialism right now? I mean, I would take another Trump presidency. Let them fill up the court with non-socialists, and give the rest of us a little breathing room so that we can build more freely and with more economic resources to get done what we need to get done. I mean, we need economic resources to fight the system. It's just the way it is. I mean, all of us we're like people like me. I'm a father man, regular family man, right? Mm-hmm. Did my military time like some guys do. I'm a regular American, come and take it type of guy, but I live in New York, so it's kind of tough to really openly be like that. But I mean, you just got to be active in the local area too, wherever you live. People say, oh, you got to stay out of politics, but why? Why do you have to stay out of politics? Why are you not either paying somebody to be there for you, or being there yourself to make these things happen? Bitcoin is the thing that we're fighting. It's like a multi-front kind of game, Right. I kind of think about it like, you got the whole Star Wars saga before Disney got involved, but you got the whole Star Wars saga where that's like the Republic fighting the Empire all the time. But just think about it in terms of planet Earth. The Republic's just trying to do their thing while the Empire is just trying to lock everything down.
Right.
And this fight is eternal. It really requires eternal vigilance, just like the founding fathers of America said. You cannot turn your back to these people. You just can't.
Right. Right.
Even after Bitcoin, you still can't turn your back on these people.
Right. But don't you think it'll be harder for someone to do a centralized power grab when they don't have the power of, controlling money and being able uh, to basically create more, like, steal indirectly savings from citizens and residents by printing more money. So therefore also getting access to spending money whichever way they want to do, because they don't have to ask permission first. They don't have to raise taxes first to either go to war or fund programs that get votes or something. They can just, in the current system, they can just do that. But on a Bitcoin standard, you need to raise taxes to be able to afford to do things, because you can't just, create government bonds that the Fed buys and you get money as a government. So, I mean, personally, I think it's going to be harder to be, the government will find it harder to have a power base. I believe that the money really is a strong part of the power base. What do you think about that?
The money is important, but what I think a lot of Bitcoiners who are maybe young or they haven't looked into what real resource management is from a central banker's point of view. So a central banker just cares about the resources. The numbers in the fiat really is like secondary to the central banker. The banker just wants to make sure that he's got control of the industrial complex. And what we're really up against is the industrial complex. So if their currency turns to garbage, the next thing they're going to do is they're going to try to take direct control of the of the areas that aren't in the industrial complex yet. So if you have if you have private solar farms, if you have private power generation somewhere that's mining Bitcoins or something like that, they will come directly after that. That will be what they would be after from a tactical point of view. So I try to tell Bitcoiners out all the time, do not turn your back to any strategy that they will ever put forward, and be ahead of it.
Right. Any strategy to grab resources from the citizens, you mean, or
just to grab resources in order to be in power? Because the next attack vector is to control all energy and all physical production of the Bitcoins.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be, I guess, instead of printing money from a central bank, if you control the mining, you are literally digging up money off the ground or money off the blockchain by getting the mining rewards, and then also the fees, of course.
Yeah, but they're still not at the same advantage that they were at. Even if they did all that and they were successful in not getting all their, like, they were successful in having the culture somehow let them just take everything like that.
Right.
It's just a lot. It's a lot to think about, because they will exploit every last little thing possible, just like they've done to the United States for the last 100 years. With the Federal Reserve, and just inch by inch by inch, whether it be new money laws, more inflation. They want to take all the countries. They take all the gun rights, so you can't even stop the enforcement of inhumane treatment against people. You can't even stop the murdering of, in some cases, the murdering of entire villages of people. That hasn't happened in the United States in the last 100 years, but it happens in other countries. They take the weaponry and then they just wipe everyone out. Happens in China. I know China's got a lot of what we'll call them political prisoners right now in giant prisons that look like camping facilities. We'll say it like that.
Right.
So if you look at China and look at their tactics, and if Bitcoin really starts to become as powerful as people think it's going to be, what we're up against is people who think like the Chinese Communist government.
Right.
They will take every last. They will sit down with think tanks every night and just think about, you know, production facilities, manpower, how they can manipulate that, how they can gain social control. And that's why I keep trying to tell people the war is on many fronts. Yes, you have to keep Bitcoin running. Yes, you have to keep people interested in it. And being interested in Bitcoin really is just being interested about your own personal freedom. I mean, just on
Agree.
a money level, not even like a societal, cultural level. Just on a money level, I don't want my hard work being worth nothing 5 years from now just because the government wants to print a bunch of money, and I don't want to invest in companies that can do the same thing. They can just print more shares, or the CEO can just or the board of directors can just leave the company and move all of his money to another company, pump that thing up, and repeat the cycle of fleecing a bunch of people of money. Because technically stocks are shit coins, but since they're in the same Cantillon effect as the central banks just buy their stocks. So the
Is that
CEOs,
happening yet, though, in US? That I know in Japan, I'm pretty sure that the central bank is buying all types of assets, and I believe also stocks. As far as I know, they're not allowed to do that in US yet, are they? Although
they
it's probably
do.
a matter of time.
I'm not an expert, but they're doing something to keep the prices from.
I think they're buying company bonds. Um, but in terms of, I probably don't fully agree when it comes to like I don't see stocks as a profitable investment compared to Bitcoin. Like right now, I don't see anything that will go up in value measured in Bitcoin. Um, but if stocks are printed more of, you do have your rights as a stockholder. So if they, for instance, Tesla recently, did a stock split. So for each stock you had, that stock became 5 stocks with 1/5 of the value. And the way the regulation is, I mean, you will get that. So they can't print more stock and just sell it to someone else, and your stock is diluted. You are actually the beneficiary of that. But no new value is created. It just makes it easier for people with a smaller budget to afford the stock, which was becoming worth $2,500, which is a lot of money, and then it became worth 500 instead. But yeah,
I would
that's just,
say the whole stock thing. Like I was even a stockbroker before I was even in the army. It's what made me join the army, because I was a stockbroker before the top of 2007, 2008 crash in 2009. After that, I decided, that I was going to completely change everything about myself, and figured I'd just join the army, even though I could have done a bunch of other things, but figured I'd just do something hard.
yeah.
Didn't really have anything else to do. Was young and unmarried, so just
Yeah.
figured I'd just do it. But yeah, with the stocks, the government can buy the stocks. They can do it through the banks. They can just, with all those bailouts and everything, a bunch of it goes to these different banks, and they can buy the stocks. And
Yeah, one of the things I find problematic is the lack of transparency in what's going on. Like, for instance, the Federal Reserve cannot be audited. That's a problem. The Federal Reserve is not owned by the government. That's also a problem because that is profitable. That is profiting from all of us. But who owns that? I know that there's that book, The Creature of Jekyll Island, I think suggesting that it's private bankers. I haven't read the book, but I wouldn't be surprised. It does make a lot of sense. Like if you follow the money and the monetary incentive for actions, you usually find out what's going on. So yeah, Uh, there was another point I wanted to make, but I always keep going off on a tangent, and I get very far down the side road. Uh, uh,
I think when we think about Bitcoin, what we really try to think about, and all of us Bitcoiners, we all bicker at each other all day long about what we think society is going to become because of it. I think society is going to become a lot more competitive than it is now, especially as resources in the way that they're represented on a screen of digits. Which if 20 years from now, if Bitcoin is huge and it's a stable price, I'm sure people would much rather trade in Bitcoins than they would in their fiat currencies. But governments can prop up their fiat currencies a little bit. If the citizens are actually required to purchase those fiat units as a tax, then they can prop it up a little bit. But that's kind of like if they require it, that's kind of like their last hurrah.
right.
But they could scrounge a little value doing that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you have to pay your tax in US dollars in US, you would need to buy some US dollars from your Bitcoin or for your Bitcoin at some stage. I agree that I think the future will be much more productive and with a faster growth than right now. I mean, it's pretty much proven that free market capitalism it does allocate resources a lot better and creates more wealth in society. While when we have uh, government or authorities interfering and setting the price, basically like in Soviet Union or any other communist country, they have much less production value and less growth. I mean, you could say uh, in China, they actually have a lot of growth, but it's not really communist anymore because you do have free enterprise. It's just the political system, is called communist. But in terms of production value, markets, how they operate, it's pretty like uh, private ownership of property. It's coming more close to a capitalist market system. The problem I have with, for instance, the Federal Reserve is if you look at an economy, half of the economy is made up by money because every transactions have a service or good on one side, and then they have money on the other side. So money is really half of all economic activity. And the price of money, which is the interest rate is what you pay to hold money for a period of time, or that you get if you lend it out. So the price of money is interest rate. And this interest rate is not decided by the market in countries with a central bank. It's decided by a committee, central committee deciding what they think is best for the market. That's what the Fed is doing in US, and to me, that's just very much exactly the way that that communism operated, and that doesn't do any good for society. So I think that one of the arguments for having a central bank, a Federal Reserve, is to smooth out the crashes in the economy and to make it more stable. But I mean, if we look at that, that's just not happening. Like we had a major crash in 2000, we had a major crash in 2007 and 8, and we probably would have it right now if it
But
wasn't.
those crashes keep happening. We had that crash. Those crashes, if you think back to the, I know a lot of Bitcoiners are, I guess, younger than you and I, but if you think back to like
Definitely
the 80s,
younger than me.
you think back to like the 80s and stuff, one of the biggest stock market crashes of all time happened in the 80s, but when they talk about the rally that happened after of 500 points, people hear that now and they're like, oh, that was tiny. But back then, I think it was something like 20% in like, a short period of like a day or two. That was back in like when like Reagan was president.
Right.
So people don't remember stuff like that. It's all about the percentages, not about the actual numbers itself. And it also shows how much things are diluted when you talk about a 500-point rally in the 80s being one of the biggest rallies of all time, and it only being 500 points. Then you think back to another period of time, maybe back in the 70s or 60s, where a rally was 50 points and it was considered the biggest of all time. And then you go back to the 1940s and 1930s, the recovery rally in the 30s after the Depression, one of the biggest recoveries of all time, and I think it was maybe like 50 or 100 points. You know what I mean? Like, so.
Yeah. No, I agree. Everything is relative. You got to look at not what's the numerical value of how many points the Dow moves. You got to look at the percentage it moves. But my point is, so as you mentioned, all these ups and downs in the market, it's not something the Federal Reserve has been able to avoid. And we will always have boom and bust cycles also without a Federal Reserve. But in a free market economy, it will just be, it'll be more healthy because if there is over enthusiasm in a new area, a lot of money is being lent to it, a lot of money is being invested into starting up companies in that, there will be people who burn their fingers and prices a bit up too much, and then there will come a crash. That's a normal, natural cycle, and it's not worse, I think, under a free system than a Federal Reserve system. Because I mean, if we look at it, the Federal Reserve system is not really fixing boom and bust. So, and I think.
Let me just. I just want to get before we go on to more stuff, because that's such a good. What you're saying is so perfect, because the product and service or the service that they're claiming to have because when you look at the history books, they were claiming that the Federal Reserve and central banks would smooth these things out, that the whole reason for their existence, their whole sales pitch for this, was that they were going to smooth out all these booms and busts with their system while they try to benefit on the back end. They can't even, the system is so terrible that it can't even provide a smidgen of what they promise it can to the people that they're taking all the wealth from. That's how bad it is. It doesn't even come close to providing that service that it claims to provide.
I agree.
And we had it pretty decent before these central banks got like really, really big. Especially before Bretton Woods, it was pretty decent. I mean, there was other social issues that should have been taken care of before then, but people always like to bring the social issues with the monetary issues. But the politicians will use the social issues to try to get you to agree to a monetary position that's totally unagreeable. That's just what politicians do. I mean, I know this is that people who watch this don't want to hear about all that, because a lot of Bitcoiners are very anarchy, so they think the government stuff doesn't matter. But the truth is, what they're doing matters a lot, because look at the situation we're all in. We're all in this lockdown, and we're all in this lockdown because they can print as much money as they want, and they also have full control of the industrial complex. So the resources that we can get outside that system are very small. So we're actually really huge underdogs compared to what's going on a full tactical level. And it's just a tough spot. I mean, Trump is getting in the way of that. He's got some really bad advisors around him, really bad advisors. Not that, U.S. people keep getting screwed more by it.
So I've had this thought recently, the last couple of weeks, and it's like I don't like the Democrats because they bring about the destruction of U.S. The fastest, and what I don't like about Republicans is they delay the reestablishment of something healthy in U.S. In general, I'm just not much for politicians and government involvement in society. Really, of course, government play a role to some extent, but 1% of what it does now, in my opinion. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a multi-front thing. I mean the government itself is part of the industrial complex. A lot of people don't understand that. So technically speaking, if you could get your soldiers to infiltrate that organization, you can take it over and take that system away from them. A lot of people don't understand that and don't understand why I say, why are you not interested in politics? It's literally one of the battlefronts that's going on. You don't have to take a position on their issues. Their issue is not important. What's important is getting the control back, and the government has to be infiltrated by Bitcoiners. It has to be.
Right.
Who's going to lead the charge? You can't. Who's going to lead the charge and get everything to be accepted if the right people aren't in place?
Right.
I've been trying to spread that message, but
right.
a lot of Bitcoiners really get angry with me about that.
Right. But you know what? I think that's going to happen automatically. I think that we'll see more and more of politicians realizing that Bitcoin is the right place to put their savings. And as more and more politicians hold Bitcoin, I think that government will become more and more positive towards Bitcoin and implement policies that embrace a Bitcoin instead of fiat currency system. So I think it'll kind of happen automatically. And also I mean, I'm not as afraid of this, the way government will develop, maybe as it sounds like you are, because I just simply see money as being the ultimate power base, and that power is now coming back to people with Bitcoin. So, in my opinion, the pendulum swings, and it's swinging back to the people now with Bitcoin, and we're getting rid of the fiat currency regime and the way that can essentially dilute people's saving. I mean, I think it's really it's tragic comic that people are convinced that printing money and diluting your savings is good for you. But that's what people think. Like if you start talking a little bit, monetary policy and Bitcoin with someone who still didn't study Bitcoin and understand Bitcoin, what it is, and monetary systems, they feel like, no, but we need to print more money and stimulate the economy so people can keep their jobs, which I think is, it's comical, but it's also so tragic that someone has been able to convince them of that. And we're talking pretty much the entire population. If you go back and look at history, we spoke about this a little bit in our first happy hour today. It's always happy hour somewhere in Bitcoin land. But as I mentioned earlier, the best period of growth in productivity in the United States was while we were on our hard money standard, when it was gold that was money from 1873 to 1892. So that 20 years, the total production value almost tripled in the United States. Like it's immense. And I just believe that it's already proven, yet people believe that it's great that their savings lose value every year. And
I think every single social group that the politicians try to brag about that they're trying to support, since Bretton Woods, every single social group, even the ones that they say are still oppressed, have less money now than they did before Bretton Woods. Every single group. You can't point to a single group that doesn't have less money.
Right. And that's a great point. So even they have these official policies and programs to try and help people. Everyone's off in a worse spot today. I mean, I see it here in LA, where I see I have friends that have they're highly educated, have great jobs, and we're talking about what is meant to be cream of society. But a lot of them are struggling, financially from the first to the first, um, because of the financial system that we have, and I think also this whole you know uh, system of thinking where we should spend money because it's losing value, so we should spend to keep our neighbor in a job. It's putting people in a terrible place. It's intuitively much more healthy that people focus on saving for retirement than just spending and overspending. But that's what we're doing here in US.
Yeah.
It's really just overspending.
I find myself literally spending my money just because I have to. And I, as a United States citizen who is supposed to be living in a less than 10% inflation zone, I don't believe it's less than 10%. I believe it's more like 15% in real terms, what economics say as real terms. So I spend it on like literal, just something to just have fun with the day for sometimes, and I'll probably just throw it away. Things that sometimes I
But
don't even use them. I spend the money. It's just
right. But at least now you have the best thing ever to spend your money on. You have Bitcoin, you got Sats, you can stack Sats and create a better tomorrow for yourself.
yeah.
That makes sense. So finally, we have a savings technology that really works, in my opinion. So
And it's easy to
yeah,
trade with.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
Um,
it's a little
Absolutely.
slow right now, but it's I mean, I could just imagine what this thing's going to be like in 10, 15 years. Um, whatever protocol is used to speed the whole thing up, that whatever second layer is going to be the one that everyone decides to go with. I'm sure it'll be
Right.
like a pretty unanimous decision in the community when that moment happens. Because I see like,
Right.
Lightning hasn't really gotten everyone on it. There's another one, I don't remember the name. That one's not really getting everyone on it, but everyone still has their attention still on I always find myself looking back to see how Lightning's doing.
Right.
Just because it's got my imagination. Like if this thing could become rock solid, I would I would use this thing. I would use this thing for almost everything, and I wouldn't even look at the fiat currencies anymore. This every time I get paid in fiat, for the people out there that work in jobs connected to government, you're going to get fiat no matter what until the fiat printing machine can't print anymore. We don't know how long that'll take, but anyone who works for the government's going to keep getting money paid like that. But if you move that into Bitcoin, and you're completely free. You don't have to ask the banks to withdraw. You don't have to. You don't have to ask. Tell the bank in advance that you're going to move $25,000. You don't have to do
Yeah.
any of that stuff. It's the biggest. Even trying to buy a car is a headache nowadays. Ever try to go into a dealership and just buy a car, cash, and they like all of a sudden you're filling out like federal forms and stuff like why am I filling out federal forms to tell you where I got this money from? It doesn't even make any sense. Like it's my
Yeah.
money. Like aren't you
Yeah.
glad enough I'm giving it to you?
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, as if it was your money and you could spend it. I mean, of course it's your money. You should be able to spend it how you want.
Right.
But it's not your money in the fiat currency system. Once you hand it over to the bank, they owe it to you, but it's not yours anymore. It can be frozen. You can do try and transfer money, and then that can also be, blocked and money sent back. And that's why Bitcoin is sovereign money. It gives the power back to the individual. It gives money, people's money back to themselves. But anyways, really interesting to hear your take on the whole political and military situation. Before we end it off, I want to hear a little bit more about what your expectations are to the bull run that is happening right now. If you have any expectations, what do you see happening the next 1 year, 2 years in Bitcoin and number go up technology?
Definitely number go up technology. As soon as we get a little bit enough of the republic back to be able to go outside of our houses without masks anymore, I think we're going strong six figures. I don't know how strong into that, but I really think that the next top is going to be strongly, like in a position that's going to surprise many people. And I really think the next bull run is going to be longer because it's going to catch institutions. It's not going to be the mom and pop money. It's not going to be like, it's not going to be me and you and
No,
I mean, it is going to be me and you and all the other Bitcoiners out there still piling into it. But there's going to be
I agree.
bankers piling into it.
Volume is going to come from professionals now, while the 2017 bull run was really mainly retail driven. Hardly any corporate money was coming in. MicroStrategy has kicked off this season beautifully by converting 425 US fiat currency dollars on their balance sheet to Bitcoin, not for speculation, but simply because they feel it's a safer place to store their value. I mean, that's just so beautiful. So yeah, I like the way you put it, a strong six figure. And then we don't know if that's 100,000 or 500,000 or somewhere in between. That fits along my expectations as well. I think it's likely that it's between 200 and 250, but who knows, I just don't think it'll go above 340. That would be an unprecedented growth.
I think this is going to be an unprecedented one because a lot of these traders are looking at the dollars right now as garbage.
Ray Dalio says cash is trash.
And when they see the trading yield on Bitcoin going forward, the fact that I think Bitcoin is not going to stop until it gets as big as gold in the next run. I think we're going to hit. I think we're going to match gold, and I think those bankers are going to try to dump the bull run right when it gets to gold, and they're gonna say, see, it's not bigger than gold, but all of us Bitcoiners are going to be like, no, we didn't think it was going to get bigger than gold in this run. It's going to be in the next run.
Yeah. So the death certificate on Bitcoin sometime in 2022 will be like, it didn't make it to gold, therefore Bitcoin now will die.
Yes, and it's trash because it didn't get bigger.
It will crash from above, somewhere in the six figures to somewhere in the five figures, maybe 50 or 80,000. It'll crash down to that, be on a death spiral, only to then once again start the next 4-year cycle.
Some bankers are going to get so wrecked with this too. I literally can't wait. I mean, I might sell like one Bitcoin in the next run.
Right.
And just hold the rest through the whole dump.
Right.
And just live off whatever regular income.
Hey, you're getting money from the government. Maybe UBI is created, then nobody has to work and create value anymore. You just free money.
It's all free.
It's all free. Awesome. All right, it's been really interesting, TopRoller. As we spoke about a little bit before, it's going to be nice if we're having this bull run sometime next year to at some conference or something, start meeting some of all these people that we're seeing on Bitcoin Twitter. That's why also it's nice to have you on, and someone I've just seen on Twitter, but get to know people a little bit. That's what I enjoy about the happy hour here we're doing. So thanks for coming on, and let me know. All right, so in the show notes below on YouTube, you'll find the link to TopRoller's Twitter profile if you don't already follow it. But let's hear from you. Any final words, anything you want to say or share before you come on next time?
Basically, hard times create hard men. Not just men, but men and women and families. These are the hard times right now. Make yourself hard. get hard money, and just be prepared for the future. It's going to be a good future once this all gets sorted out. And that's my message. Just be strong. That's it.
I love it, and I agree. I'm optimistic. I'm positive. The future is gonna be great once we have Bitcoin in the hands of more people. All right. On that note, TopRoller, thank you very much for coming on. It was great. You can hang out in the green room, and everyone out there, keep stacking sats. Bye.